YouTube? It's your boy Jerome coming to you tonight with a review for How to Get Away with Murder. This is season 5, episode 10, and the episode was titled Don't Go Dark on Me. So, without further ado, we are going to get into this episode. This was it was a lot in this episode, so it took me some time to get these notes together. I didn't finish watching the episode until almost 20 minutes after the show went off. So, without further ado, I'm gonna get through this the best I can. There were some things that I was kind of confused about, so bear with me with this one. All right, so the episode started. We see Connor. So Connor looked like he went for a run, and he went over to Asher's place. So when he goes to Asher's place, Asher is like, Asher wants to talk about the whole situation that happened with him and his mom, and Connor's like, don't talk to me about my mom. Like, please don't. So then we see not Asher, but we see Connor. And Connor goes over to he says, is he there? Talking about New West. So he goes up to the wall. He's listening through the wall, and then you can hear New West's computer. And I need to put my microphone on. So you hear New West's computer, and he's doing some push-ups and whatnot. So then we see Oliver and Michaela, they're together. So Oliver is going through, the wedding gifts that he and Connor have gotten, and then Michaela, I really couldn't understand what Michaela was saying, but the gist of what I got from what Michaela was talking about was with the little Nate case, what she wants to do is she wants to do a wrongful death case, and then she also wants to burn New West as well because she feels played, basically. So then upstairs, like where last week's episode ended, we had Laurel. Laurel was, baby Chris was crying, so she went over there to get him, and she picked up the blanket, and the blanket had blood on it. So then, she reaches out to Bonnie, and the phone goes to voicemail. So we see Bonnie, Nate, and Frank there together, and Frank wants to involve Annalise, but Nate is like, I don't want to involve Annalise in it. Oh, this has nothing to do with her. Like, let's keep her out of this as much as we can. And, Bonnie says, you know what, Frank is Nate's choice, so let's just, agree with what he says. So, then Frank says, you know what, if anything happens going forward with Miller, one of y'all got to, tell me where his body is. So then, Frank is like, let's call Anna. Frank picks up the phone to call Eve, because, Nate's like, what do we agree on? So when Frank goes to call Eve, Annalise answers the phone. And he's like, Annalise? He said, are you did she go to where Eve is? She said, nope, Eve is here. And, because he wants to talk to her about New West. She said, well, we talked last night, all is good. He said, wait, you guys talked last night? And she says, I want you to bring over the files that you have on New West. And Eve says hi. Okay, so next we have Bonnie and we got Nate. So they're talking about, basically what they're going to say whenever it comes up that Miller is missing. And, Bonnie is just telling, Nate everything that she's going to say. And then I guess, there were parts of this episode where I didn't understand, like I said, I didn't understand a few parts of what they were saying. And this is one of those parts where I didn't 100% understand what Nate and Bonnie were saying, because I don't know if Nate was telling Bonnie that she was messing something up or not when she was telling her side of what things happened the night of the wedding. And Nate is talking about how basically when it came down to him and Miller, they were only in the tent and nobody really saw them. But then, Bonnie's like, well, that's not entirely true because Asher saw you guys at the tent. So then we see Bonnie. She texts, Asher telling her that she needs to meet him. Well, Michaela is sitting by Asher's phone and she's like, Asher, why does Bonnie want to see you? And, he says that he does not know. So then they all start to talk about, sorry, I had to pause to look at my notes. So then they all start talking about New West once again. And then, Laura brings her ass down the stairs. I'm like, good God. Because Michaela's like, let's stop worrying about him and let's worry about this case that she's trying to do for Little Nate and Big Nate. So, what it is like I said, she wants to do this, she wants to do a civil case where she's suing the state.
Um, and Oliver. So Oliver is hung up on the fact that Michaela wants to help little Nate and big Nate, but she did what she did to Simon. I'm like, shut the fuck up about Simon. Like, damn. So then we see New West. He shows up and he wants to talk to Michaela. He says that he tells them that Sam is his dad, and that he followed Annalise last night because he needed to talk to Annalise, and that's when he proceeded to tell them that Sam was his dad, and how he just wants to know what happened to Sam, and he was hoping that maybe they could tell him what happened to Sam. And I'm like, good luck with that one, because those are your father's killers right there, but that's not my business. Right, so then we see Nate, Bonnie, and Asher. They're together. So basically, Nate is questioning Asher about what he saw at the wedding. And he's telling him that, at the wedding, you did not see me with Miller. You saw Bonnie with Miller. And Asher's like, why would I say that I saw Bonnie with Miller when that's not the case? So then, Bonnie and Nate both agreed to show Asher the photo of Miller at the payphone. So then a red flag goes off, a light bulb goes off in Asher's head, and he's like, oh, so you want me to say that I saw Bonnie at the wedding because you killed Miller? So he put it together. So then we see them, they are all sitting at the table. So basically what's going on at this table is they're talking about what's going to happen come Monday morning when Miller does not show up to work. They are going to do a missing persons report. The FBI is going to come in. They're going to look at the last person who was in contact with him, i.e. Bonnie. So then we see them, they pull Bonnie in a room, and actually we see Bonnie go into her office. When she goes into her office, there is a note there for her. Miller was excited to take her to the wedding. So then the two FBI agents come in to get Bonnie. They question Bonnie, and they tell Bonnie that Miller is missing. And she's like, he's missing? Like, do you know that his mother lives in, wherever his mother lives? I forgot where she said his mother lives. She's like, yeah. The FBI agents were like, yep, we already checked there. He's not there. And, in a nutshell, Nate is telling, Bonnie, himself, and Asher that going forward, they have to move as if every single move is being watched, especially at work. Yeah. Now, we do see Bonnie when she's talking to the FBI agents. She did repeat everything that she and Nate went over. So she went over the conversation that, she and Miller were on the phone. They had a fight. She did let them know that they were dating. And I don't know if Bonnie mixed up the days that she supposedly talked to Miller, because Bonnie says that, she talked to him on Saturday, and then she kind of backtracked and said, what, it could have been Sunday morning or whatever. I'm just not entirely sure. And I'm like, did she fuck up? I couldn't remember. I'm like, did she fuck up? Like, I could not remember at that point. Did she fuck up the days? Was it supposed to be Saturday? Was it supposed to be Sunday? Because I know it was late in the night when Nate called her, but we'll see. So then we see the scene where Nate, he's sitting in his car and he's looking out, and then there come one of the guards that shot his dad. So then we see Nate, he gets out of the car and he commits to whooping this one guard's ass. So after that scene, we see Nate, he's with the FBI agents, and they're questioning Nate. And then one of them, he has his hand bandaged up, and they ask him, what happened to your hand? And he tells them what happened to his hand. And while he's saying this, he's replaying this conversation that he had with Frank in his head. And the conversation with Frank was that, when it comes down to it, he's going to be the number one suspect that they look at for anything. And, they ask him, is he aware that Miller's missing? And, he says no. And he basically points the finger at the guards. And they're like, so you think the guards are the ones that did this to him? And he's like, it makes logical sense. I wonder, I feel like at some point somebody's going to fuck up. I don't know if it's going to be Bonnie or if it's going to be Nate. But I feel like somebody's going to fuck up this whole thing. and it's just gonna unravel and crumble, and they're gonna have to include Annalise somehow to clean the mess up that they've made. All right, so then we see Bonnie. She's in her office and she has these notes that Miller has left for her, and we start to see her kind of crack and break down, but she didn't actually cry. I'm like, you go, Bonnie, be a G. So then we see her. She goes and talks to one of her colleagues, and she finally tells him that she and Miller work together with one another, and how she doesn't want to cause trouble, but then she kind of threw another person under the bus. I don't know what person she threw under the bus. And then she takes something out and she sits it on his desk. It looked like a thumb drive, but I wasn't sure if it was a thumb drive. So I don't know if it was a thumb drive or flash drive. I don't know what that 100% what that was that she put on his desk, but she did put something on his desk, and he's looking at her like, whoa, I don't want to get involved with that like that. That's not something that I want to partake in. So, we'll see how that plays out a little later in the review. All right, y'all. So this scene with the Eve and Annalise stuff, I'm probably going to be talking for a good minute with this one. But we see Eve and we see Annalise, and, they're talking. And Annalise basically wants to know why Eve did not tell her about Sam, New West, Vivian, Frank, etc. So, Eve was like, what, you had just lost a baby and you were grieving, and she said she thought she was doing what was best for Annalise, and she also did not want Sam to leave Annalise, but Annalise like, yes, you did want him to leave me. So then Eve says, she tells Annalise who New West has worked with, and she tells her that, if he does try to reopen Sam's case, they can hit him with a conspiracy theory. And Annalise says no, because the governor knows that she tried to adopt West, and if that happens, she can the governor can reopen the case, trying to say that, hey, Annalise was working with West to kill Sam, so it wouldn't be good for Annalise to do that. So earlier I said that Annalise told Frank to come over with the files that he have because Eve was there. So we see him, he comes over there with the files. Annalise is looking at the files, but I'm guessing the files didn't have a lot of information in it. So Annalise tells Frank, what, I need you to go find some more dirt you can find, because this is not enough. I want more. And then as Frank is getting ready to leave, Annalise says, what, give me your phone, because I don't want you and her to be in contact with one another. So, Frank gives Annalise his phone, and she looks in the phone. She says, what's her name in the phone? He says, it's the one. So we finally, which I figured that out last week, that Eve was the one that Frank had in his phone as the one. So she does delete the the phone number out of his contacts. But I'm like, even if you delete it out of his contacts, it's still in his call log. So if he's recently called her, all you got to do is just call her again and had a number. But whatever. So then we see Frank. He goes over there with the kids, and he's talking to the kids, telling them, what, when it comes to New West, Annalise and I, we got this covered. Y'all don't have to worry about nothing. Let it go. But he does need Oliver's help. And the only way Oliver agrees to help Frank is if Frank gives him access to the spy cam. And Frank says, no, I'm not doing that. And then Laura's big mouth ass says, well, he can just hack it if he wants to. So Frank is like, fuck, he can't hack it. So Frank gives in. So then we see Oliver. He tells us, he's telling Michaela them that he has not found anything on Vivian yet, that she's much like her son, an enigma. And then we see Connor. He is watching the feed of New West. So then we see Laurel. She comes in there with Connor, and she's asking Connor, like, when it comes down to baby Christopher, what should she tell him about West? Should she do to Christopher what Vivian did to New West? And Connor is like, no, you don't do that to him. Tell him the truth. And she's like, well, what is the truth? And the truth is that, his father stood up, took the rap for his friends. And that is the truth. West did take the rap for y'all. Like, y'all all killed Sam. Like, y'all all had a hand in it. But West is the one that really, at the end of the day, took the fall for it, even though he's dead. He took the fall for it. All right, so once again, we see Annalise. She's looking at those files that Frank has on New West. And then we see Eve on the phone. So then Eve comes out of the room, and Annalise asks her how's her girlfriend, and then Eve tells her that her girlfriend is pregnant, and Annalise is like, "That's funny for someone who doesn't want to have a baby. You had a baby. You having a baby." So then Eve asks Annalise is she drinking again, and Annalise is like, "Did Frank tell you that I'm drinking?" And Eve is like, "No, Frank did not tell me that you were drinking. It's kind of written all over your face that you are drinking." And basically, I keep saying that a lot. So in a nutshell, Eve tells Annalise that she has to be the one to make the choice to stop drinking, which that is 100% true. Nobody can tell. You can tell Annalise all day, every day, stop drinking, stop drinking, stop drinking. But it has to come down to Annalise to want to stop drinking. But we'll see how that plays out. And then we see Eve. She's on the phone with one of her contacts. And then she gets off the phone and she says her contact is checking on everything with Vivian. And Annalise tells Eve, "You can leave if you want to." And she's like, "No, I'm staying." And then we see Emmett. Emmett shows up because he called Annalise, and Annalise has not returned any of his phone calls. So then Emmett tells Annalise that he got served, for a deposition where they want him to admit fault in the misconduct allegations. And Annalise tells him, "What? I'm gonna look into this, so you ain't got nothing to worry about." And then we see another scene where Eve is asking Annalise questions about her love life. She's asking her, "Are you staying here because of Nate, the guy that came over here, or is it a woman?" And Annalise tells her, "What? I don't even know nobody at this point. That the only person that can save Annalise is Annalise," which is true. Like, you can put a lot of people in her life, but if Annalise don't want to stop drinking, you can't make her stop drinking. That's got to be something that she wants to stop doing. And if she doesn't want to stop drinking, she doesn't want to stop drinking. So then we see another scene where we have Frank, and he's telling Annalise and Eve that Vivian has been clean, and then he's talking about Vivian's boyfriend. And what Frank wants to do is he wants to scare the boyfriend, but Annalise is like, "No, let's not do that." So she and Frank, I guess, they came up with a plan. And the plan was for Annalise them to make it appear that New West's mom, Vivian, has started back doing drugs with her boyfriend, who is a drug dealer, but they're using drugs using her. They're doing the drugs that are her own drugs, which, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. So we see Annalise. She goes over there where New West is, and she shows him all this stuff that she has on him. And she's like, "If I can find this, just imagine what anybody else can find in a matter of minutes." And he's like, "Well, why are you coming at me with this?" So Annalise is like, "The reason why I'm coming at you with this is because I want to protect you. I want to protect your mom because I feel bad about what happened with your mama. So I just want to protect her." And like I said, the kids are watching. So we are going to see how this plays out with Annalise and New West going forward. So then Annalise, she goes home, and Eve is packing up to get ready to leave. And Eve tells her, "What? I'm just a plane ride away. If you need me, if you need any help with the governor, New West, or anything like that." And Annalise said vice versa. "I'm just a plane ride away. When she had a baby, I can come visit." And so then we also see the scene where we see the scene where New West. So we all know that he has his flip phone. So it looks like he just got out the shower, and he picks up the flip phone. Once he answers the flip phone, there's a voicemail on there. So the FBI agent, she left a message for New West saying, "Hey, my name is so and so, and I'm calling because of this voicemail that you left on Ron Miller's voicemail." So then we get a flashback to when New West made the phone call saying that they had figured out who he was and that the person needed to call him back. Well, that person he was calling was in fact Miller. So I wonder what Miller's connection is to New West. I'm pretty sure I know we're gonna find out pretty soon, but I'm really interested to see what the connection is. Okay, y'all, I know this review is kind of a little bit out of order because I didn't really know how to put some of this stuff together, but I'm working with it the best way I can. So we see Emmett. Emmett is at the office, and then Tegan comes into the office. And, Emmett is asking Tegan, what does she know about Eve? I can't remember what Eve's last name is. And, Tegan tells her what she knows about Eve. And he's like, well, why would Annalise be meeting with her? And, he says, well, do you think she's up to anything? And Tegan is like, she's always up to something. Doesn't mean it necessarily is bad. Then she's like, well, it might not be that bad. So, then we see Michaela. So Michaela, she was at the district attorney's office, and she was talking to Asher, and she was trying to get Asher to get the transcripts from Little Nate's case. Asher tells her no, and she's like, why am I the only one that wants to see justice from this case? And Asher's like, that's not what it is. She's like, well, maybe I should go ask Bonnie. How do you think she would feel about you telling us that she's screwing Miller? And, oh, and then she asked him, when Bonnie texted him, when she texted him about something with New West, he said no, it was something personal. And Michaela's got that look on her face. I'm like, oh gosh, she's gonna keep digging and digging until she figures it out. So then we see Michaela. She is at Kaplan and Gold, and she's filling out this civil lawsuit. And then New West comes up and wants to talk to her again. And he's telling her, the truth about the night that they hooked up. He meant everything that he said to her. And he said the reason why he hid who Sam was so that he can find out what happened to him. And then he tries to play on the fact that Michaela is adopted, and how, maybe she wants to learn about her parents the way that he wanted to learn about Sam. I don't know why he wants to learn so much about Sam. Sam was not a good person, but if he keeps digging, he will find out the truth about Sam and who the fuck Sam was. So, okay. So then we see Michaela. She's talking to Tegan, and she's bringing up this civil case for Little Nate to Tegan. And, she says let her think about it because, Michaela has not talked to Big Nate about this. So, Tegan's just like, so you haven't gotten his say so on this, but let me think about this. So then Tegan asks Michaela, why would Annalise be meeting with Eve? And she says, well, I know they had something when they were in college. And that raises Tegan's antennas a little bit, like, oh, bisexual. She said there is a such thing as bisexual. And Michaela's like, yeah, I know a little bit something about that. My ex-fiance, he was bisexual, and that really raised Tegan's antennas again. I'm like, Tegan, please don't do nothing with Michaela. Like, no, do not fuck with Michaela. So then we see Tegan. She is going to Emmett's office, and she's taking this case to Emmett for him to look at it. And he says, what, I'll look at it and I'll think about it. And then she says, oh, so I did find out a little bit of information about Annalise and Eve, their exes. So what, you still have a good shot. He says, so do you too. Yep, Tegan, girl, we know you like Annalise. Just go ahead and admit it. We all know it. So we did see the scene where Asher was talking to Miller's assistant, and what he was doing was he was playing like there's some hope for Miller, and he was talking about Miller's phone. And in this conversation that he was having with her, we did find out that Miller's phone was kind of old and outdated, and he was waiting for the upgrade to come because his phone was dying on him. So that kind of explains why he was at the payphone. So then we see Nate come out of that questioning with the FBI, and Bonnie's like, "Did they question you?" He said, "Yes, but we'll talk later." So he keeps walking, and then Bonnie sees Asher, and Asher wants to talk to Bonnie, and he tells Bonnie about what he had the conversation with Miller's assistant, and he was like, he's trying to say maybe there was a reason why Miller used the payphone instead of his phone, and Bonnie doesn't want to hear it because she's already got it in her head that he was the bad guy and he did this and this and that for that reason. So Bonnie just is not really trying to listen to it at this point. Okay, yeah. So and like I said, I am sorry because I do see now that I'm going a little bit out of order. But we did have this scene, which was earlier in the episode, where New West, he was talking to the kids, and he's talking to them about the year that Annalise was working out of the house when Sam died. Um, he's talking about how he never really believed the whole story that Wes was the one that killed Sam. He felt like maybe Wes was covering up for someone, and then he questions all of them, did they believe it? And then he talks to Laurel. Why did he talk to Laurel? Laurel's talking about, I loved him. I want to spend the rest of my life with him. And then to find out he was hiding his true self from me, I'm like, Laurel, shut the fuck up. Like, Laurel gets on my motherfucking nerves. Good God, Laurel gets on my nerves. I ain't never dislike somebody as much as I dislike Laurel. Yep, that was it for that one. All right, so then the last part of the episode. So we see on the news where they're talking about Miller. And then in Bonnie's office, we see the guy that she went to his office and was talking to him. He comes back to her office and he has a flash drive for her. Oh, okay. It just dawned in my head. So Bonnie did put a flash drive on his desk. What she wanted was for him to get the recordings of actually, we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. Well, we can go into that now, I guess, or we can wait. So yeah, so she wanted the recordings of the conversations with the warden. So then we see the kids, they asked Asher if he knew anything about what happened with Miller. And Michaela's like, you don't know anything about that and you've been at the office all day? He says, no. So then we see Frank. He calls Nate and he says that they need, he needs to tell him now. And he says, I'm here now. So when he says he's here now, he's actually at Annalise's place. So then we see Bonnie. She's listening to the recordings of the warden. And, there are multiple people on the recordings. And then, so we go flashback over to the kids. And, they're talking, they're still listening to the news. And, they're talking about D.A. Denver. Laurel's dad been in prison for Denver's death. And then Connor says, do you think your dad could have did this? And Laurel said, it's possible. And Michaela says, no, Laurel, your dad didn't do it. But Asher knows what's going on, don't you? So, Michaela brings up everything that happened at the wedding. Bonnie with the blood on her leg. And then, they all jump in. And then at the end of it, Asher tells them it was why do I want to say Wes? It was Nate that killed Miller. So then we see Nate. He's talking to Annalise. And he's telling Annalise what happened. So at the end of it, I think if I got it correctly, I think what Nate wants to do is he wants to plant this on the governor. I was confused. I was really confused because one minute he was saying he was throwing blame at the guards, but then at the end of the episode he's talking about the governor. So then we the very, very last part of the episode is Bonnie was listening to those recordings, and then one of them happened to be Miller. And from the conversation that we were listening to with Miller was trying to make that transition for Nate's dad from the prison to where he was going next, a smooth transition. So it appears that, Bonnie and Nate killed an innocent man. But that was a review. Again, like last week, I'm sorry that this shit was all over the place, but this episode was all over the place. Like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, and I shall see you guys later.